A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta. This season, our focus is to bring you global perspectives and insights that can drive change for entrepreneurs and small businesses in India. In line with this, today we are joined by a brand that has been a major player in the mobile accessory industry. With India's market being home to numerous local and small businesses, how can a global brand carve out a distinct space? To explore this, I'll be speaking with David Barnett, founder and CEO of Popsockets, about the company's strategic re-entry into the Indian market and its plans to stand out in this competitive landscape. And in the second segment, a conversation lined up about the ongoing COP29 with Amit Kapur, managing partner, JSA. I'm now joined live by David Barnett, founder and CEO Popsockets. Thank you, David, for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I'd like to begin the interview by talking about Popsockets' trajectory. You've seen tremendous success with nearly 300 million products sold. David, could you provide an overview of how the mobile accessory industry has evolved globally, and how do you see India's tech-savvy consumer base fitting into this growth story?
Sure. So when I launched Popsockets over 10 years ago, and we introduced the first phone grip, there were roughly 1 billion smartphone users. And today there are 6 billion more smartphone users for a total of 7 billion. And you can imagine a lot of these new users are in India. And so not only is the growth itself in numbers of consumers coming from India, but the shift and the evolution, I think, in what counts as value is also coming from the India consumer. So value is not perceived simply as a cheap protective case anymore. 10 years ago, I think that is what people were looking for, just something low cost to protect their device, minimal protection. Today, the consumer is looking for a lot more. And the tech-savvy consumer in India, I think, is at this intersection of function and style. They want something very high quality that's also stylish and allows them to express themselves and have something that's culturally relevant for expressing their personality and their personal taste. And of course, they demand something that's going to improve their functionality each day too.
Now, Popsockets has re-entered the Indian market with a renewed focus. David, tell us what excites you the most about this re-entry.
I'm excited to bring joy to the digital lives of Indians. So we offer premium styles that bring joy through self-expression. And then we offer solutions that replace pain points with joy. So for instance, our flagship product, the Grip, solves problems with one-handed use of the device without dropping it. So you're able to move your hand out from behind your phone and operate your phone with a single hand. Your thumb can now access the entire screen comfortably, securely. And these little, it also serves as a stand for watching videos, watching movies. But removing these little pain points tends to cause people to say things like, this is the one thing I never thought I needed, but now I can't live without. So it brings little bits of happiness to people's lives throughout the day. And then, of course, our premium styles make people a little happier too by dressing up their phones each day in a way that is consistent with their passions.
So, David, in India, there are many small businesses and local shops that deal in mobile accessories. How does Popsockets plan to differentiate itself in such a competitive market?
Sure. I think, put simply, we aim to offer a superior experience. And how do we aim to do that? It's through an ecosystem of quality premium products. So we now offer an entire magnetic wardrobe for your phone. It includes premium styles of MagSafe grips, cases, wallets, mounts, power banks. So MagSafe is a magnetic platform that Apple introduced with their iPhone 12, but our products are available for any device owner. So they come with an adapter that allows you to magnetically attach and detach these accessories from your phone really easily. And they provide, I don't know, a fun way to accessorize, grab the accessory that you need for the occasion, and also grab the style, the premium style that you need for the occasion. So you can dress up your phone the way that you might dress yourself up, occasion by occasion.
Sure. So based on Popsockets' global success, what advice would you give to small business owners in India who are looking to innovate and scale their operations?
My one piece of advice, it's been consistent through all the years that entrepreneurs have come to me, and it's forget about scaling in your first few years. Just focus on getting the product right. So think small, don't think big, meaning perfect your product, whether it's a service. I don't know if you have a new dry cleaning service or I don't know, a new app for the phone or a new physical product, whatever it is. Go slowly and carefully until you develop a small, passionate cult following for your product. Then once you do that, scaling is easy, right? Because you've perfected this product, and the operations and the marketing, all of that will follow much more easily. If you start by thinking, how am I going to build this massive business with 800 stores around the world? It's going to be very difficult. Unless you have the perfect product.
Now, I also want to talk about the plant core line, which represents a big step forward for Popsockets in terms of sustainability. Could you elaborate on the journey towards using more plant-based plastics?
Sure. So our original grip actually has a quite low carbon footprint. And arguably, it has a negative carbon footprint. So if 1 out of every 1,000 of our grips prevents a phone from being replaced because it's been dropped and damaged, then our grip is carbon negative, because the phones have such a massive carbon footprint that serving to protect them from being replaced. But we wanted to do better. So we started researching different directions for developing a more environmentally friendly product. We looked at compostable materials, we looked at recycled materials, and in the end, we decided that the best route was to sequester carbon from the atmosphere with plants. So we really feel that the future is plant-based, and plants can really help solve a lot of the world's problems these days. I think this will resonate with the Indian consumer. But we use plants to sequester that carbon, and then those plants are used to manufacture our products. So we pull the carbon out and hold them in our products and reduce the carbon footprint significantly, not just of our grips, but our cases and other products.
And what new trends in mobile usage are you seeing? How is Popsockets evolving to meet changing consumer demands, especially in a country like India?
Sure. So the two trends, I think, can be divided into technological and fashion-based. Big picture, the biggest technological trend is MagSafe, and because this MagSafe technology has been adopted by this Qi standard, the standard that governs wireless charging. And that means that Android devices will soon be coming out with this MagSafe technology. So magnetic rings embedded in the devices, starting in 2025 or maybe even later this year. And the other trend, I would say, is more fashion-based. And that's people's recognition that the one thing that they carry with them every day, namely their phone, is personal and has a lot of value. And so they want to show that by dressing it up in a personalized way. And accessories are becoming more and more of fashion statements of self-expression.
Now, with rapid technological advancements, where do you see the future of mobile accessories heading in the next 5 to 10 years, David?
I do feel that you're going to see mobile accessories follow in the footsteps of sneakers. So if you look back many years ago at sneakers, they were mostly for utility. Gradually, people started wearing sneakers for style, but that just kept evolving to the point where there's a whole sneaker culture, right? They're not just stylish, but they're setting trends. And I think mobile accessories can follow in these same footsteps. And in 10 years, mobile accessories will be setting trends. And there will be, significant culture around them and around certain brands that are driving the trends, driving the culture.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, David. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much. Great questions. And I hope to meet you too next time I'm there.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. In this segment, we are chatting about the key takeaways from COP29, focusing on climate finance, Paris Agreement, and much more. In conversation with Amit Kapur, Managing Partner, JSA. Thank you, Amit, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So first things first, I want to kickstart this interview by asking you to tell us the key announcements or takeaways that the broader business ecosystem and especially smaller enterprises are watching out for at COP29.
So I think two or three things which are very critical. And I think it's evident in terms of what we have read in the media, what we are seeing in terms of the challenges that are being faced in the economy. We are clearly seeing the segmentation of the world in the journey of climate change between the developed and the developing. And where the per capita consumption and the per capita emission is significantly lower in terms of the carbon track, we have the concerns in terms of headroom available for developmental growth. Now, if you're talking about the small and medium enterprises, they have the added challenge of access to finance, long-term finance, cheaper finance, and also access to technology and awareness about it. Now, what we are typically trying to look at is the transition on technology side of things so that the consumption patterns go down, the emissions are reduced. And this requires capital, this requires steady capital, and this requires access to technology. If you go back to what has been promised since COP15, the developed countries have fallen back in terms of their ability to bring the money which was needed to make this transition. I think the focus on clean tech and climate change, transition and financing is definitely not going to be as significant as we saw earlier. So the challenges that we have, A, access to long-term patient finance, B, willingness of the developed world and the Western world to provide the funds and the technology access to them, and handhold them in terms of skill development, because you will have to retrain people and be careful about the employment challenges that these entities can also face. That's how I see this.
Now, with COP29 being referred to as a finance COP, key climate finance issues are at the forefront of its agenda. In this context, how is the regulatory landscape changing for businesses, looking to access and manage funds for sustainability projects?
In terms of the mechanisms, again, I think what we need to understand is environment and climate are amongst what are known as commons. There are no national boundaries to climate and climate change. You don't tie it down to a specific region or area. And as we have seen, the impact of climate change and the adverse effect of climate change has been felt in many developed countries far more devastating than even the developing ones. Now, if that is the reality, what we need to first understand is the regulatory landscape cannot be a specific landscape of a country alone. While the NDCs or the national development commitments, which are being put out voluntarily by nations following COP15, COP25, is all very well. But unless there is a overall frame in which the globalized world is moving in that direction, it will not achieve the ends that it has. So, one, I think the most important thing is you need to create a regulatory landscape which will provide a suitable nudge for people to transition their consumption patterns and their emission patterns. Countries who have used the carbon budgets available for their growth are continuing to guzzle much higher consumption patterns and emit more on a per capita basis, while trying to nail down the burden of not doing so and therefore sacrificing some amount of basic economic growth on the developing countries. This is becoming a tension point, and I think we need to find solutions. I don't think COP28 has addressed it. I hope COP29 will address it head on. Otherwise, we are in for serious trouble.
Amit, what specific roles do you believe smaller businesses can play in addressing climate change in terms of taking practical steps to integrate sustainability into their operations and contribute to broader environmental goals?
MSME consumes around 25% of the total energy consumed in the industry in India. Innovative structures like quickly developing and launching the carbon markets that India has been talking about could go a long way in addressing this problem. Once the emission budgets are set, and if the Bureau of Energy Efficiency and the Government of India can put in place a mechanism by which the baseline measurement of emission can be evaluated in context of reduction in emission or control of emission as we go forward, the carbon credit that will come in turn could be monetized more effectively in a globalized market. But for that, we need to develop a taxonomy which speaks to the international market. If a corpus is created, and I think this corpus must be created by whether it's the new development bank from the BRICS, or it is the World Bank, or it's several other multilaterals that are coming together, as also Indian corporates, we could see a major change because India is doing very well in setting out targets and achieving the NDCs. So those are 2 or 3 areas where I believe that we could work with the MSMEs. They are keen to do it. So there is a need for us to start looking a little laterally outside the box, creating opportunities for youngsters and startups to try and pick it up and run with it. And I would commend that something like Chakra must be looked at carefully. And their journey is amazing.
Sure. Now, Amit, the outcomes of the first global stock take under the Paris Agreement were discussed at COP28 last year. Now, as we move towards the next assessment in the next few years, what regulatory risks and compliance challenges do you foresee for businesses, especially MSMEs?
I think the first challenge you find is that we still have not developed an integrated, universal taxonomy. We do not measure, assess, and identify climate change and all factors that go into the carbon emissions or any other deleterious impact as a consequence of climate change. So we need to develop that taxonomy. Secondly, we need to develop, besides the taxonomy, a market mechanism by which any industrial unit which meets and overachieves its carbon emission reduction has the carbon credits, which it is able to trade to those who are not able to achieve and realize value for themselves. There is no measurement of the negative impact which comes as a consequence. A reduction in life, health problems, medical costs, reduction in productivity, all of these need to be factored. So I think some of these creative solutions have to be looked at.
Now, speaking of some of the critical sectors like infrastructure, real estate, and energy, in your experience, what are the potential risks associated with climate adaptation for critical sectors like these? How should businesses in these industries prepare for challenges?
So the investment and therefore the amount of work that is going to be done in infrastructure across the board, whether it's highways, railways, power, airports, ports, etc., all of this will entail significant construction. So we need to start looking at the processes that we follow in these industries. Besides the fact that infrastructure by itself will have to move to resilience. Now, moving to resilience when it comes to technology at big capital is not so much of a problem. Can be done. We are moving in that direction. As I told you, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, I understand, are coming out with those 9 industries and sectors in which they are going to cover around 830 units. That's what I understand from a conversation I had with them just a day back. and that would cover the emission targets or budgets or ceiling of how much can they emit across the next year. And this will come into force from 1st April of 2025. So if we can move in that direction, I think it'll go a long way in solving the problems. So some consciousness will have to come along with it, that when we make choices which are harmful, it is coming at a cost to my family, my children, my friends, my neighborhood, the next generation. Unless that consciousness comes in us, a devil-may-care attitude is actually harming us significantly.
Finally, what strategies do you think are essential for mobilizing resources to support vulnerable nations in the face of climate change? What role can businesses play in this global effort? And how can a platform like COP29 play a role in driving these goals?
So, very briefly, I've illustrated a lot of the points already. But if we focus on the low-hanging fruits, pricing the negative externality, putting it on the table, making sure that we are able to capture the value of transition towards carbon avoidance, the emission reduction. If we reward that, I'm sure you will have revenue streams that will come and backstop their transitions. So a lot of awareness has to be brought into play.
Well, thank you, Amit, for joining us. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate ET reaching out for this. It is a matter of significance, and I'm glad that I can contribute my voice to your effort.
And with that, it's a wrap on this episode of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed the conversations. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.